My boyfriend said I was just for fun after 5 years together. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach as I stood frozen outside Jake's apartment door, key halfway to the lock. Dude, she actually thinks we're gonna get engaged soon. His voice carried through the thin walls, followed by the sound of beer bottles clinking. Like, seriously thinks I'm gonna propose. My hand trembled as I lowered the key, grocery bags cutting into my wrists. I'd just spent $43 on ingredients for his favorite lasagna, the one I made every Sunday for the past 3 years. So are you? That was Marcus, Jake's college buddy who was visiting from Phoenix. Jake's laugh made my blood freeze. To Emma? Nah, man. She's fun and all, super convenient, but she's not exactly wife material, you know? I mean, she pays half my rent, does my laundry, got me the job at Morrison Tech through her dad's connection. Why would I mess up a good thing by making it complicated? I pressed my back against the hallway wall, praying the elderly neighbor wouldn't choose this moment to come home. 5 years. 5 years of believing we were building something together. 5 years of turning down other guys, other opportunities, other cities because Jake said we were a team. Plus, Jake continued, and I could practically hear him taking another swig. She's getting a little, I don't know, clingy? Keep talking about meeting my parents officially, not just those random barbecues. Wanting to move in together for real instead of me just staying at her place half the time. It's like she doesn't get that this is what it is. What it is? Marcus sounded confused. A good time, man. She's hot, she's low maintenance, and she doesn't hassle me about going out with you guys. But my mom would die if I brought her home as my girlfriend. Emma's a bartender at that dive on 5th Street. She didn't even finish college. My family's expecting me to end up with someone more substantial. The grocery bag slipped from my numb fingers, a can of tomatoes rolling across the worn carpet. I dropped out junior year when my dad got sick, spent 2 years taking care of him before he died. Jake knew this. Jake held me while I cried about it. So what's the plan? Marcus asked. Keep things casual until I meet someone worth actually dating. Emma's perfect for now, she thinks we're solid, so she's not going anywhere, and I don't have to do any of the actual relationship work. Best of both worlds. Their laughter felt like glass in my chest. I thought about the ring I'd seen him looking at online last month, how my heart had raced when I caught him quickly closing the browser tab. I thought about the conversation we'd had just last Tuesday, lying in my bed, the bed where he slept 4 nights a week without paying a dime toward my rent, talking about taking a trip to meet his extended family in Colorado. I thought about the Morrison Tech job that my dad's former business partner had handed Jake on a silver platter because I'd asked. The job Jake had been at for 8 months, the one that finally got him out of his dead-end retail position. I bent down slowly, mechanically picking up the scattered groceries. The lasagna ingredients that had seemed so important 20 minutes ago now felt absurd in my hands. Jake Peterson thought I was convenient. He was about to learn just how inconvenient I could be. I made it back to my car without throwing up, which felt like a small miracle. My hand shook as I started the engine, muscle memory taking over while my brain tried to process what I just heard. The grocery bag sat in my passenger seat like evidence of my own stupidity. Organic ground beef at $8.99 a pound because Jake mentioned he was trying to eat healthier. The 20-minute drive to my apartment passed in a blur. I'd been living in the same one-bedroom on Maple Street for 4 years, the place where Jake kept a drawer full of clothes, a spare phone charger, and a stupid protein powder that took up half my kitchen counter. The place where he'd never once offered to help with utilities, where he ate my food and used my Netflix password and left his dirty dishes in my sink. I sat in my parking spot for 10 minutes, staring up at the windows of what I'd foolishly started thinking of as our place. The light was on in the bedroom. I'd left it on this morning when Jake was still sleeping, because he'd stayed over Thursday night like he did every week. His pattern was so predictable, Monday and Wednesday at his apartment across town where I wasn't on the lease, Thursday through Sunday at mine. My phone buzzed. A text from Jake. Hey babe, Marcus and I are gonna grab dinner. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you. I actually laughed out loud, a bitter sound that echoed in my small car. Then I opened my banking app, something I should have done a long time ago. The numbers stared back at me in neat rows of digital devastation. Venmo to Jake Peterson, September 1st, $650, his half of rent that I sent to my landlord. Venmo to Jake Peterson, August 28th, $23, his share of groceries. Venmo to Jake Peterson, August 15th, $175, half of the electric bill and internet. Venmo to Jake Peterson, August 3rd, $650, rent again. I scrolled back further. 6 months of transactions. My half of his rent, $3,900. My half of utilities and groceries and date nights and the weekend trip to Portland where he'd surprised me for my 26th birthday, except apparently I'd surprised myself because I paid for the hotel. But it was worse than the money. I thought about Morrison Tech, about the phone call I'd made to Richard Morrison, my dad's old friend who'd known me since I was 12. How I'd explained that my boyfriend was brilliant with computer systems and just needed someone to give him a chance. How Richard had trusted my word and created a position for Jake, bumping his salary from $14 an hour at GameStop to $52,000 a year. Convenient. The word rolled around in my head like a marble in an empty jar. I pulled up our text thread and scrolled back through weeks of messages. Jake asking me to pick up his dry cleaning. Jake asking if I could make dinner because he'd be coming over straight from work. Jake asking me to call his dentist to reschedule his appointment because he was too busy. Jake asking. And me saying yes, like the useful little girlfriend I'd been trained to be. My phone rang, Melissa, my coworker from Murphy's Bar where I'd been slinging drinks for 3 years while Jake figured out his career path. The career path I'd handed him on a silver platter. Thank God you answered. I know it's your day off, but Carly called in sick and we're slammed. Any chance you could come in for a few hours? I'll owe you forever. I looked up at my apartment window again, imagining Jake's spare clothes hanging in my closet, his toothbrush by my bathroom sink. Actually, I said, I'll take a double shift. I could use the money. That was the first lie I told that night. It wouldn't be the last. Murphy's Bar was exactly where I needed to be, dark, loud, and full of people drowning their problems in overpriced whiskey. I'd been behind the bar for 3 hours, and the familiar rhythm of pouring drinks was the only thing keeping me from completely losing it. Another round for table 6, Melissa called out, sliding past me with a tray full of empties. And that guy in the Patriots jersey has been asking for you specifically. Pretty sure he's working up the courage to ask you out. I glanced over at Patriots jersey, mid-30s, decent looking, probably makes more than $14 an hour at GameStop. 6 months ago, I would have politely deflected. Tonight, I found myself actually smiling back when he waved. Emma Martinez, is that you? I turned toward the familiar voice and nearly dropped the bottle of vodka I was holding. Sarah Chen sat at the far end of the bar, looking polished in a way that made me suddenly aware of my Murphy's Bar t-shirt and ponytail. Sarah, wow. Hi. Sarah had been my study partner in our economics classes before I dropped out. Last I'd heard through mutual friends, she was finishing her MBA and working at some consulting firm downtown. She moved to an empty stool closer to where I was working. I heard you were working here. How are things? Are you still with that guy? Jake, right? The question hit like a physical blow. This morning I would have lit up talking about Jake. I would have probably mentioned the Colorado trip, maybe even hinted about thinking he was going to propose soon. The humiliation was so fresh it made my cheeks burn. We're figuring things out, I managed, focusing on wiping down glasses that were already clean. Sarah's expression softened. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pry. It's just. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone. This is probably none of my business, but I was at Morrison Tech's happy hour last Friday. Client thing. And I could swear I saw Jake there with some blonde woman. They seemed pretty close. My hands went still. Last Friday? Yeah, around 7:30? They were at that wine bar next to the Morrison building. Bottle service, very date-like. She showed me her phone, a group selfie with her clients, but in the background, unmistakably Jake's profile. His arm around a woman with long blonde hair, both of them laughing. Last Friday. When Jake had texted me that he was working late and would just crash at his own place. When I'd sent him a Venmo for $15 to grab dinner on his way home so he wouldn't be hungry. I'm really sorry, Emma. I debated whether to say anything, but if someone saw my boyfriend out with another woman, I'd want to know. I managed to nod, my throat too tight to speak. Sarah squeezed my hand across the bar before rejoining her friends, leaving me staring at my phone. I scrolled to last Friday's messages. Jake, 4:47 p.m., gonna be stuck here until at least 8. Rain check on movie night? Me, 4:52 p.m., of course. Don't work too hard. Love you. Jake, 5:15 p.m., you're the best. Probably just gonna grab something quick and crash at my place after. Me, 5:16 p.m., Venmo payment $15 fuel up, babe. He'd used my money to take another woman on a date. Patriots jersey appeared at the bar during my mental spiral. Could I get a bourbon, neat? And maybe your number? For the first time in 5 years, I didn't automatically mention having a boyfriend. The bourbon I can do, I said, pouring a generous double. The number, ask me again in a week. He grinned and left a $20 tip. My phone buzzed with another text from Jake, hope you're having a good night. See you tomorrow? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, actually, I picked up a double shift. Probably won't be home until late tomorrow. His response came immediately, no worries, I'll just stay at my place then. Of course he would. The double shift ended at 2 a.m., but I couldn't face going home yet. Instead, I sat in my car in Murphy's empty parking lot, scrolling through Jake's social media like a masochist. His Instagram was a carefully curated collection of gym selfies, food photos, and group shots with his buddies, notably absent of any couple photos from the past year. I'd always assumed he was just private about our relationship online. Now I realize the truth, you don't post photos of something that's just for fun. I switched to Facebook and found myself diving deeper. Jake's relationship status had been hidden since 2019. His tagged photos told a different story than his posts. There was the blonde from Sarah's photo, tagged in 3 different group shots from the past 2 months. Brittany Lawson. I clicked on her profile with trembling fingers. Marketing coordinator at Morrison Tech college graduate. Photos of her at charity galas, wine tastings, hiking trips with friends who all looked like they stepped out of a J.Crew catalog. The kind of substantial woman Jake's family would approve of. The kind of woman who was exactly my age but had spent her early 20s building a career instead of playing house with a man who saw her as a placeholder. My phone rang, startling me. Mom's contact photo filled the screen, the 2 of us at Dad's birthday dinner 3 years ago, back when I still believed I knew what my future looked like. Mija, I know it's late, but I just got off my shift and saw your car wasn't home. Everything okay? Mom worked nights at St. Mary's Hospital, same schedule she'd kept for 15 years. Her route home took her right past my apartment complex. I'd inherited her observation skills and her tendency to worry about the people she loved. I'm fine, Mom. Just got off work. That's not your fine voice. What happened? The gentleness in her tone almost broke me. Mom had never loved Jake, though she'd been polite enough about him. She'd made comments over the years, little observations about how he never seemed to prioritize me, how he'd been figuring himself out for an awfully long time, how men who want to marry you don't usually take 5 years to decide. I'd defended him every time. Jake and I, we might be having some problems. A pause. Then, do you want to come over? I'll make coffee. 20 minutes later, I was sitting at Mom's kitchen table, the same one where I'd done homework as a kid, where we'd planned Dad's funeral arrangements, where she'd helped me practice mixing drinks when I first started at Murphy's. He's been using me, I said finally, after explaining what I'd overheard. 5 years, Mom. 5 years of me thinking we were building something together, and he was just collecting benefits. Mom's expression was carefully neutral, but I caught the flash of something that looked like relief. What are you going to do? I don't know. Everything feels like a lie. The apartment we talked about getting together, he never meant it. The family trip to Colorado, probably never happening. I've been living in a fantasy while he's been shopping for my replacement. Emma. Mom's voice was firm. Look at me. I met her dark eyes, so much like my own. Your father used to say that people show you who they are through their actions, not their words. What have Jake's actions been telling you? I thought about the Venmo transactions, the clothes in my apartment but his name nowhere on my lease, the job he'd accepted without ever thanking me, the way he'd never once posted a photo of us together. That I'm convenient, I whispered. And what are your actions going to tell him? I drove home from Mom's house at 4 a.m. with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Her question kept echoing, what are your actions going to tell him? The answer was becoming clearer with every mile. My apartment felt different when I walked in, smaller, shabbier, full of evidence of a relationship that had never really existed. Jake's protein powder on my counter. His Xbox controllers by my TV. His work shirts hanging in my closet like he actually lived here. I made a pot of coffee and opened my laptop. If Jake thought I was convenient, he was about to learn exactly how much convenience he was about to lose. First stop, my bank account. I took screenshots of every Venmo payment I'd sent him over the past year. Rent, utilities, groceries, date nights, that stupid weekend in Portland where I'd covered the hotel because his paycheck was delayed. The total made my stomach clench, $8,847 over 12 months. Nearly $9,000 I'd handed over to support our fake relationship. Next, I opened a new savings account, one Jake didn't even know existed. The irony wasn't lost on me that while he'd been calling me not wife material, I'd been the one actually managing our finances like a married couple. By 6 a.m., I had a plan. My phone buzzed with Jake's morning text, "Good morning, beautiful. Want to grab breakfast before I head to work?" I stared at the message, remembering how those words used to make me smile. Now they just felt like another transaction, Jake trading minimal effort for maximum benefit. Can't, still exhausted from the double shift. Maybe dinner later? Sounds good. Love you. There it was again. Love you, the casual sign-off that I treasured like a prayer. I waited until 10 a.m., when I knew Jake would be settled at Morrison Tech, probably drinking coffee I paid for from the Keurig machine at his apartment. Then I made the call I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Morrison Tech, Richard Morrison's office. Hi Sandra, it's Emma Martinez. Is Richard available? I need to speak with him about something important. Richard had been Dad's business partner for 12 years before Dad got sick. He'd spoken at the funeral, helped Mom with the insurance paperwork, and treated me like the daughter he'd never had. When I'd called asking him to interview Jake, he'd said yes without hesitation. Emma. How wonderful to hear from you. Hold on, let me get him. Emma, sweetheart. Richard's warm voice came through the line. How are you holding up? It's been too long. I'm okay, Richard. Actually, I'm calling about Jake Peterson. The guy I recommended for the systems analyst position? A pause. Is everything all right? His work has been excellent. Very reliable, great with clients. Of course it had been. Jake was good at his job, I'd never doubted that. He was just terrible at being a decent human being. I'm glad to hear that. But I need to tell you something, and it's going to be awkward. I took a deep breath. Jake and I are breaking up. It turns out he's been seeing other people. Including someone else from your company. Oh, Emma. I'm so sorry. The thing is, Richard, I don't want this to affect his job. He earned his position. But I wanted you to hear it from me, in case there are any workplace complications. Apparently he's been dating Brittany Lawson from your marketing department. Another pause, longer this time. Brittany Lawson? Emma, that's concerning for other reasons. We have strict policies about undisclosed relationships between employees. Jake never mentioned he was seeing anyone from the company. I felt a small, dark satisfaction bloom in my chest. I don't think Jake is very good at disclosure. I'll need to look into this. Thank you for telling me. And Emma? I'm sorry this happened to you. Your father raised you right, you deserve so much better. After I hung up, I sat staring at my phone for a long time. I wasn't trying to get Jake fired. I was just removing my protection from him, the same way he'd been planning to remove me from his life. Jake had spent 5 years teaching me that love was something you had to earn through service. It was time for him to learn what happened when the service ended. The call I'd been dreading came at 2:47 p.m. while I was reorganizing my closet, systematically removing every piece of Jake's clothing and folding them into neat piles on my bed. Emma, what the hell did you do? Jake's voice was sharp, angrier than I'd heard him in years. Richard Morrison just called me into his office asking about undisclosed relationships. He knows about Brittany. I held the phone between my ear and shoulder, continuing to fold his Morrison Tech polo shirts, the ones I'd helped him pick out when he started the job. Hi Jake. How was your morning? Don't play dumb. Did you call Morrison? I called Richard, yes. He's been like family since Dad died. I thought he should know we were breaking up, especially since apparently you'd been dating his marketing coordinator. I kept my voice steady, almost bored. Workplace policies and all. A long silence. Then, breaking up? Emma, what are you talking about? We had a fight or something, but breaking up? The audacity was breathtaking. I sat down heavily on my bed, surrounded by his belongings. Jake, I heard you. Yesterday, at your apartment. Talking to Marcus about how I'm convenient and not wife material. About how you're keeping me around until you find someone substantial. Another silence, longer this time. I could practically hear him calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much damage control he needed to do. Emma, you misunderstood. Did I misunderstand the part where you called me clingy? Or the part where you said your mom would die if you brought me home as your actual girlfriend? Which part exactly did I misunderstand, Jake? Look, I was just talking shit with Marcus. You know how guys are when they're drinking. It didn't mean anything. I laughed, and it came out harsh and bitter. 5 years didn't mean anything. That's the whole point. Come on, don't be dramatic. We can talk about this. I'll come over after work and we'll figure it out. I love you. No. The word came out stronger than I felt. Don't come over. Your stuff will be packed and ready for pickup tomorrow. My stuff? Emma, you're being crazy. One conversation that you took the wrong way and you're ready to throw away 5 years? I'm not throwing anything away, Jake. You already did that. I stood up, walking to my kitchen where his protein powder still sat on my counter. Tell me something, last Friday when you worked late, where did you really go? Silence. Because Sarah Chin saw you at that wine bar next to Morrison. With Brittany. Using the $15 I sent you for dinner. It wasn't, that was just work. A client thing. With bottle service? Very professional. I opened his protein powder and dumped it down the garbage disposal. The grinding sound was oddly satisfying. How long have you been seeing her, Jake? I'm not seeing her. Emma, you're being paranoid. How long? A pause. When he spoke again, his voice was different, flatter, like he was tired of pretending. We've hung out a few times. It's nothing serious. Nothing serious. Just like I've been nothing serious for 5 years. Here's what's going to happen, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. You're going to get your things tomorrow. I'll leave them on the porch. Don't use your key, I'm having the locks changed. Emma. I'm also going to need you to pay me back for your half of my rent. All of it. I calculated it out, you owe me $3,900 for this year alone. Are you insane? I can't just give you $4,000. Then we can work out a payment plan. But Jake? The free ride is over. I hung up before he could respond, my hands shaking with adrenaline. My phone immediately started buzzing with texts, but I turned it face down and went back to packing his belongings. By evening, I had 3 neat boxes by my front door and a strange sense of lightness I hadn't felt in years. The real reckoning was just beginning. The boxes sat by my door like evidence of a crime I'd finally decided to report. I'd been staring at them for 20 minutes when my phone rang, not Jake this time, but Marcus. Jake's college buddy who'd been part of that devastating conversation yesterday. Hey Emma, it's Marcus. Look, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Let me guess, I interrupted, walking to my kitchen window. Jake called you in a panic and asked you to smooth things over. He's really torn up about this. He said you overheard us talking yesterday and got the wrong idea. The wrong idea. I opened my laptop and pulled up Jake's Venmo history while Marcus continued his damage control pitch. Marcus, tell me something. When you guys were laughing about me yesterday, what exactly did Jake say about the ring? A pause. What ring? The engagement ring I saw him looking at online last month. The one that made me think he was finally serious about us. I was fishing, but Marcus's silence told me everything I needed to know. Emma, I don't think Jake's been ring shopping. He's been pretty clear that you guys are just. I mean, he talks about you like. Like what? Marcus sighed. Like you're a really good friend he sleeps with. I'm sorry. I thought you knew. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment feeling something shift inside my chest. Not heartbreak anymore, that had happened yesterday. This was something colder, more focused. Jake hadn't just lied to me about his intentions. He'd let me live in a fantasy while telling everyone else the truth. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hi Emma, this is Brittany Lawson from Morrison Tech. Could we talk? I stared at the message for a full minute before responding, sure. When and where? There's a coffee shop called Grind on 5th Street. Tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I think we need to clear some things up. After agreeing to meet her, I opened my laptop and did something I'd never done before. I googled Jake Peterson. Not stalking, just research. What I found made my stomach drop. His LinkedIn profile listed him as in a relationship but didn't specify with whom. His company bio mentioned his passion for building lasting connections. There were photos from Morrison Tech events going back 6 months, and in 3 of them, he had his arm around Brittany Lawson. But the real revelation came when I found his old college newspaper archives. Jake had been featured in an article about student entrepreneurs during his senior year. The headline read, Business Student Plans Strategic Approach to Post-Grad Life. In the interview, 21-year-old Jake had laid out his 5-year plan with chilling precision. I believe in keeping your options open, he'd said. Why limit yourself to one path when you can maintain several parallel opportunities? Whether it's career networking, social connections, or romantic relationships, the key is managing multiple prospects until you're ready to commit to the best option. Multiple prospects. Parallel opportunities. The best option. I'd spent 5 years being managed like a stock portfolio. My phone rang again, Mom this time. How are you holding up, Mija? Actually better than expected. I'm meeting with the other woman tomorrow. Emma. Not to fight, Mom. To compare notes. I think Jake's been running the same game on both of us. I scrolled through the photos from Morrison Tech's website. She works at his company. They've been photographed together at work events for months. What do you think she wants? Probably to figure out what I knew and when I knew it. Jake's in trouble at work for not disclosing their relationship. She's probably trying to manage the fallout. But as I said it, I realized I might be wrong. Maybe Brittany Lawson was just another woman who believed Jake's lies. Maybe she had no idea I existed, the same way I'd had no idea about her. Be careful tomorrow, Mom said. Don't let anger make you do something you'll regret. After we hung up, I walked through my apartment one more time, seeing it with new eyes. This place that had felt like our sanctuary was really just my space that Jake had colonized. The second toothbrush I bought him was still by my bathroom sink. His Xbox was still connected to my TV. His spare key was still on my kitchen counter. I picked up the key and held it in my palm. Such a small thing to represent 5 years of my life. Tomorrow I would meet Brittany Lawson and learn just how deep Jake's deception went. Tonight, I was going to take back my space entirely. I started with changing my Netflix password. The coffee shop meeting with Brittany was scheduled for 10 a.m., but I arrived 15 minutes early, claiming a corner table where I could watch the door. I barely slept, my mind cycling through possible scenarios. Was she coming to threaten me? To compare notes? To warn me off? At exactly 10 a.m., a blonde woman in a cream-colored blazer walked through the door, scanning the room with a kind of confidence I recognized from her LinkedIn photos. Brittany Lawson looked exactly like what Jake's family would consider substantial, put together, professional, the kind of woman who probably had a 5-year plan that didn't involve subsidizing some guy's lifestyle. Emma? She approached my table with a hesitant smile. Thank you for meeting me. Up close, she looked tired. Her makeup was flawless, but there were dark circles under her eyes that concealer couldn't quite hide. She ordered a large coffee with an extra shot and sat across from me, clutching her cup like a lifeline. I suppose you're wondering why I wanted to talk, she said. The thought had crossed my mind. Brittany took a sip of her coffee and studied me over the rim. Jake told me you two broke up 6 months ago. He said it was amicable, that you were still figuring out the logistics of separating your stuff. I felt my eyebrows shoot up. 6 months ago? That's when we started seeing each other officially. Well, officially for us. He said he couldn't go public until things were completely settled with you. She set down her cup with shaking hands. Yesterday, my boss called me in for a meeting about undisclosed workplace relationships. That's when I found out you'd called Richard Morrison to tell him about Jake and me breaking up. Except you said you were Jake's girlfriend, present tense. The coffee shop suddenly felt too warm. Brittany, Jake, and I didn't break up 6 months ago. We didn't break up until yesterday. He's been sleeping at my apartment 4 nights a week this entire time. Her face went very pale. That's not possible. I pulled out my phone and showed her my recent Venmo transactions. September 1st, I sent him $650 for his half of my rent. August 15th, $175 for utilities. Last Tuesday, I sent him $23 for groceries. I scrolled through the endless list of payments. Does this look like someone I broke up with 6 months ago? Brittany stared at my phone screen, her professional composure cracking. He told me he was staying at his buddy Marcus's place while he looked for a new apartment. He said his lease was up and he needed time to find the right place. His lease has been up for 2 years. He just never renewed it because why pay full rent when you can split someone else's? I felt that familiar anger rising, but it was different now, cleaner, more focused. What else did he tell you about me? That you were clingy. That you had trouble accepting the breakup. She pressed her fingers to her temples. He showed me texts from you, asked me to be patient while he handled the situation delicately. What kind of texts? Things like, see you tomorrow, and love you. He said you were having trouble moving on, that he was trying to let you down easy. Her voice got smaller. I felt sorry for you. I thought I was being the understanding girlfriend, giving him space to deal with his complicated ex. The audacity was breathtaking. Jake had been showing my loving girlfriend texts to another woman as evidence that I was a stalker. Brittany, those weren't desperate ex-girlfriend texts. Those were regular relationship texts. Because we were still in a relationship. She buried her face in her hands. Oh my god. Oh my god, what have I done? You didn't do anything wrong. You believed someone you trusted. I leaned forward. The question is, what do we do now? When she looked up, there was something steely in her expression that I recognized. The look of a woman who'd just realized she'd been played. How long were you together? Total? 5 years. 5 years, she repeated. He told me you dated casually for about 8 months. She pulled out her own phone. Emma, I need to show you something, but it's going to hurt. She turned her screen toward me. It was Jake's Instagram, but not the one I followed. This was a second account, more polished, with photos I'd never seen. There was Jake at a company retreat I'd never heard about. Jake at what looked like a family wedding, no date visible in the photos. Jake at a fancy restaurant with the caption, Amazing Night, a restaurant I recognized because I'd suggested it for our anniversary, and he'd said it was too expensive. He has 2 Instagram accounts? I asked. This is the one he told me was his real account. He said the other one was just for work networking. She scrolled through more photos. Look at the captions, Emma. I read them with growing disbelief. Living my best life. New chapter, new possibilities. Sometimes change is exactly what you need. All posted during the past 6 months, while he was sleeping in my bed and eating meals I cooked. There's more, Brittany said quietly. She showed me a photo posted 3 weeks ago, Jake with an older couple at what looked like a family barbecue. The caption read, Mom and Dad always know best. Hashtag family, hashtag new beginnings, hashtag blessed. He told me those were his parents, she said. That it was the first time he'd brought a girlfriend home in years. I stared at the photo of Jake with people I'd never seen before in my life. In 5 years together, I'd never met his parents. He'd always had excuses, they lived far away, they were busy, the timing wasn't right. Meanwhile, he'd been introducing Brittany to them as his girlfriend. I've never met his parents, I said quietly. Brittany's coffee cup hit the table harder than intended. What kind of person does this? What kind of person maintains 2 completely separate lives for 6 months? The kind of person who sees people as parallel opportunities, I thought, remembering that college newspaper article. The kind of person who manages prospects until he's ready to commit to the best option. Brittany, I said, I think we need to have a longer conversation. And I think Jake Peterson is about to learn what happens when his prospects start comparing notes. 2 hours into our coffee shop conversation, Brittany and I had reconstructed Jake's elaborate double life with the precision of forensic accountants. She pulled out a leather portfolio, the kind of organizational system that screened MBA graduate, and we started building a timeline. Memorial Day weekend, Brittany said, consulting her phone calendar. Jake took me to his friend Derek's lake house. Said it was our first trip together as an official couple. I felt my stomach drop. Memorial Day weekend, Jake told me he was helping Marcus move apartments. I packed him sandwiches and sent him with a cooler full of beer. I remembered kissing him goodbye that Friday morning, telling him to have fun with the guys. I worked a double shift at Murphy's to cover the rent while he was playing house with you at a lake house. Brittany made a note in her portfolio with a kind of expensive pen that matched her handbag. Everything about her screamed competent professional, the type of woman who probably had her retirement account set up and her car registration current. The type of woman Jake's family would absolutely approve of. 4th of July, she continued. Company barbecue. Jake introduced me to everyone as his girlfriend, said he was excited for people to finally meet me. 4th of July, he told me Morrison Tech didn't allow +1s at company events. I spent the day at my mom's, helping her with her garden. The memory stung fresh. I'd been disappointed but understanding, because Jake said he wanted to keep work and personal life separate. Meanwhile, he was parading Brittany around like a trophy. Labor Day weekend, I said, checking my own phone. Jake surprised me with a trip to the coast. Said he'd been saving up to celebrate our 5-year anniversary early. Brittany's pen stopped moving. Labor Day weekend, Jake told me he had a family emergency. His grandmother was sick. He couldn't take me to my friend's wedding because he had to drive to Sacramento. We stared at each other across the small table, the magnitude of his deception settling between us like toxic fog. Jake hadn't just been cheating, he'd been running 2 completely fabricated lives with the organizational skills of a CIA operative. Brittany, can I ask you something personal? I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Has Jake ever asked you for money? She shook her head immediately. Never. He's actually been pretty generous, pays for most of our dates, brought me flowers to work twice, got me a necklace for my birthday last month. She paused. Why? I showed her my banking app, the endless stream of Venmo payments. Because I've been bankrolling his entire lifestyle. His share of my rent, utilities, groceries, date nights. I calculated it yesterday, almost $9,000 this year alone. Brittany's professional composure finally cracked completely. $9,000? Emma, that necklace he bought me cost $300. I saw the receipt in his car. I thought it was sweet that he splurged on me. He splurged on you with money I gave him. The words tasted bitter. I've been funding his relationship with you. She closed her portfolio with shaking hands. I need to ask you something, and please be honest. Did you know about me? Any part of you? Not until 2 days ago when I overheard him talking to Marcus. Jake called me convenient, said I wasn't wife material, said he was keeping me around until he found someone substantial. I met her eyes. I think you were supposed to be the substantial one. And you were supposed to be the convenient one who never found out about me. Brittany's voice was getting stronger, angrier. Emma, I work in marketing. This isn't just cheating, this is a calculated campaign. He compartmentalized us completely. Different social media accounts, different friend groups, different financial arrangements. He told each of us exactly what we needed to hear to stay in our assigned roles. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. I know you're upset, but this is getting out of hand. Morrison is asking questions I can't answer. Can we please just talk like adults? I showed the message to Brittany. He still doesn't think he did anything wrong. Her own phone buzzed. She read the message and her jaw tightened. He just texted me too. Britt, some crazy stuff is happening with my ex. She's trying to cause problems at work. I'll explain everything tonight. Love you. Crazy stuff, I repeated. That's what 5 years gets reduced to. Brittany stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the coffee shop floor. Emma, I have a proposition for you. I looked up at Brittany, recognizing something dangerous in her expression, the same cold fury I'd been feeling since yesterday, but amplified by her MBA-trained analytical mind. I'm listening, I said. She sat back down, pulling out her phone and opening what looked like a notes app. Jake thinks he's been playing chess while we've been playing checkers. But he made one critical error, he left evidence everywhere, and now his 2 biggest assets are comparing notes. Assets? That's what we were to him. I've been thinking about it like a business case study. You were his financial asset, steady income, housing support, domestic services. I was his social and career asset, the respectable girlfriend he could show off at work events and family functions. Her fingers moved quickly across her phone screen. But here's what he didn't anticipate, assets can be liquidated. I leaned forward, intrigued despite myself. What exactly are you proposing? Jake's been living consequence-free because he controlled the information flow. We only knew what he wanted us to know. But what happens when we control the information? She turned her phone toward me, showing a contact list. I have the personal numbers of 12 people from Morrison Tech, including 3 senior managers. I also have his cousin Derek's number, the one with the lake house, and I'm friends with his sister Kelly on Facebook. My pulse quickened. You want to expose him? I want to give him the same courtesy he gave us, honesty about his situation to the people who matter. Her voice was steady, professional. Nothing vindictive, just factual information shared with relevant parties. I thought about Jake's panicked phone call yesterday, his assumption that I would quietly disappear like a good little convenient girlfriend. What would that look like? Brittany opened her portfolio again, revealing pages of notes she'd apparently been taking during our conversation. Phase 1, I speak with HR at Morrison Tech. Not to get him fired, but to properly disclose our relationship as required by company policy. Of course, I'll need to explain that I was previously unaware he was living with another woman, which raises questions about his character and judgment. And phase 2? You stop subsidizing his lifestyle immediately. No more rent payments, no more grocery money, no more utilities. Let him figure out how to maintain his standard of living on his actual salary. She tapped her pen against her notes. I did some math. If he's been getting roughly $900 a month from you, and his Morrison Tech salary is $52,000 annually, he's been living like he makes $63,000. The calculation hit me like a physical blow. I've been giving Jake an effective $11,000 annual raise, funded by my bartending tips and my dead father's life insurance money. There's more, Brittany continued. I happen to know that Jake put me down as his emergency contact at work last month. Which means I'll be the one they call if he has any difficulties adjusting to his new financial reality. I stared at her across the table, this woman who should have been my enemy but was turning out to be the first person in years who truly understood what I'd been through. Brittany, are you sure you want to do this? You work with these people. This could get messy for you professionally. Emma, I'm 27 years old. I have an MBA from Northwestern and a clean employment record. Jake Peterson is a systems analyst who lied to HR about his relationship status and has been conducting an elaborate deception involving multiple women. She closed her portfolio with a snap. In any professional cost-benefit analysis, I'm not the one who comes out looking bad. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jake, please call me back. I know we can work this out. I showed the message to Brittany, who smiled for the first time since she'd sat down. Oh, we're definitely going to work this out, she said. Just not the way he's expecting. 2 hours after leaving the coffee shop, I sat in my car outside Morrison Tech with Brittany's business card in my hand and a plan that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. We'd exchanged numbers, synced our calendars, and agreed to coordinate our next moves like the strategic operation this had become. My phone had been buzzing nonstop with increasingly frantic messages from Jake. Emma, please pick up. We need to talk. I don't know what you think you heard, but you're blowing this out of proportion. Brittany isn't answering my calls either. What did you do? This is insane. You're ruining everything over a misunderstanding. The progression from pleading to anger was almost textbook. But it was the message that came in while I was reading the others that made my blood run cold. I talked to Marcus. He said you called him yesterday asking about some ring? Emma, you're starting to sound unstable. Maybe you should talk to someone. Unstable. Jake was already building his narrative, the crazy ex-girlfriend who couldn't handle reality. I screenshot the message and sent it to Brittany with a text, Phase 3, document everything. Her response came immediately, already on it. Just scheduled my HR meeting for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Also found something interesting, Jake's LinkedIn shows he's been in a relationship for 8 months. Want to guess when that started? 8 months. 2 months before he told Brittany we'd broken up. Which meant he'd been planning his exit strategy for me before he'd even secured his replacement. I was still processing this when my phone rang. Not Jake this time, Richard Morrison. Emma, I hope you don't mind me calling directly. I wanted to follow up on our conversation yesterday. Of course, Richard. Is everything okay? Well, that depends on your definition of okay. His voice carried the weight of someone who'd been having difficult conversations all day. After we spoke, I did some digging into Jake's employment file. It seems there have been some discrepancies. My stomach tightened. What kind of discrepancies? His emergency contact information, for one. He listed Brittany Lawson 3 months ago, but his original paperwork from 8 months ago lists you. His relationship status has also changed multiple times in our system. Richard paused. Emma, I've been in business for 35 years. I've seen workplace romances, complicated breakups, even some messy love triangles. But this feels different. Different how? Systematic. Like someone who's been deliberately managing information to avoid consequences. His tone grew more serious. I also received a call from our HR department this afternoon. Apparently Brittany Lawson has requested a meeting tomorrow to discuss some concerns about workplace relationship policies. The pieces were falling into place faster than I'd anticipated. Richard, I need you to know, I never intended to create problems for Jake's employment. I just thought you deserved to know the truth about the situation. Sweetheart, you did exactly the right thing. If Jake Peterson has been manipulating multiple relationships while using company resources and connections, that's not your problem, it's his. Richard's voice softened. Your father would be proud of how you've handled this. You could have caused a lot more trouble if you'd wanted to. After hanging up, I sat in the parking lot watching Morrison Tech employees leave for the day through the building's glass doors. Somewhere in there, Jake was probably having the worst afternoon of his professional life. The thought should have made me feel guilty. It didn't. My phone buzzed with a text from Brittany. Jake just showed up at my office unannounced. Security had to ask him to leave. HR moved our meeting to first thing tomorrow morning. I think he's panicking. Then another message, Emma, I found his real lease. He never let his apartment lease expire. He's been paying full rent on his place this entire time while living at yours 4 days a week. He was literally paying for the privilege of lying to you. I stared at the message, the final piece of Jake's deception clicking into place. He'd been maintaining his own apartment, his own space, his own sanctuary, while colonizing mine. While I'd been dreaming of us moving in together officially, he'd been keeping his exit strategy warm and ready. The last text from Brittany made my hands shake. His lease is up for renewal next month. Want to guess who he listed as his guarantor? His parents. The ones you've never met. The revelation about Jake's parents being his guarantors hit me like a physical blow. I sat in Morrison Tech's parking lot, staring at Brittany's text until the words blurred together. 5 years of excuses about why I couldn't meet his family. They lived too far away, they were going through a difficult time, the timing was never right, and all along they'd been close enough to co-sign his lease renewal. My phone rang before I could fully process the implications. Mom's contact photo filled the screen. Mija, I just got the strangest call, she said without preamble. A woman named Patricia Peterson called the house asking for you. She said she was Jake's mother. My blood went cold. What did she want? She seemed confused. She said Jake told her you two had broken up months ago, but then she heard from her son Derek that Jake brought a different woman to some family event. She wanted to know if you were okay and if there was anything she should know about the situation. I pressed my forehead against my steering wheel. Mom, I've never talked to Jake's mother before in my life. A long pause. Emma, this woman knew things. She knew about Dad's death, knew you'd helped Jake get his job, knew about the apartment on Maple Street. She said Jake had told her you were going through a difficult time and that's why he'd been staying with you occasionally to help out. The audacity was staggering. Jake had been telling his parents that he was doing me a favor by sleeping in my bed 4 nights a week. That I was the charity case he was generously supporting. She also said something else, Mom continued carefully. She mentioned that Jake had brought this new girlfriend, Brittany, to some family wedding last month. Apparently he told them she was his first serious relationship since college. I thought about all the times I'd asked about meeting his family, all the deflections and excuses. Meanwhile, he'd been painting me as a troubled friend he was helping out of kindness. There's more, Mija. Patricia Peterson sounded like a nice woman, but she was clearly trying to figure out if you might cause problems for Jake and this Brittany girl. She kept asking if you were handling the breakup well and if you had professional support for your grief. Professional support. Jake had convinced his parents I was mentally unstable. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Jake's name flashed on the screen, his 3rd attempt in the past hour. I declined it and immediately received a text. Emma, my mom called you. Please don't drag my family into your drama. This has gone far enough. My drama. I screenshot the message and added it to the growing folder of evidence I'd been building. Mom, did you tell Patricia Peterson anything? I told her the truth, that until 2 days ago, you thought you and Jake were planning a future together. That you'd been supporting him financially and emotionally for 5 years. That you'd never heard his name for you described as a charity case before. Mom's voice carried that edge it got when someone threatened her family. She got very quiet after that. A new text came in from an unknown number. Emma, this is Patricia Peterson, Jake's mother. I think we need to talk. Would you be available for coffee tomorrow morning? I'm driving up from Stockton. Stockton. Less than 2 hours away. Jake's parents had been living 2 hours away for 5 years while he told me they were practically unreachable. I was still staring at Patricia's text when Brittany called. Emma, we have a problem. Jake just showed up at my apartment building. My neighbor texted me. He's been sitting in his car outside for over an hour. Her voice was tight with stress. I'm staying at my friend's place tonight, but I think he's starting to realize how much control he's lost. His mother just called mine, I said. Jake's been telling his family that I'm an unstable ex he's been helping out of pity. Of course he has. Emma, I think we need to accelerate our timeline. My HR meeting is tomorrow at 9, but I have a feeling Jake's going to try some kind of preemptive damage control. She was right. Jake had spent 5 years managing information and controlling narratives. Now that both of his carefully maintained worlds were colliding, he was going to fight to regain control. But he'd made one critical miscalculation. He'd underestimated exactly how much damage 2 angry women with nothing left to lose could do. The next morning brought Patricia Peterson to my doorstep at exactly 9 a.m., clutching a thermos of coffee and wearing the kind of concerned mother expression I recognized from my own mom's face during family crises. You must be Emma, she said, and I could see Jake in her features, the same dark eyes, the same careful way of sizing up a situation before committing to it. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I'd spent the night rehearsing this conversation, but seeing Jake's mother in person threw me off balance. She looked like someone who baked cookies for church fundraisers and remembered everyone's birthdays, not someone who'd raised a son capable of the elaborate deception I'd uncovered. Mrs. Peterson, please come in. Can I get you some coffee? I brought my own, but thank you. She settled onto my couch, the same couch where Jake had spent countless Sunday afternoons playing video games while I did laundry. Emma, I'm going to be direct with you because I think we're both too old for games. After talking to your mother yesterday, I spent the evening having a very long conversation with my son. My stomach clenched. What did Jake tell you? Initially? More lies. Patricia's voice was crisp, matter of fact. He tried to convince me that you were having some kind of mental health crisis, that you'd become obsessed with him after he tried to help you following your father's death. He painted quite the picture of himself as the generous ex-boyfriend being stalked by an unstable woman. The words stung even though I'd been expecting them. And you believed him? For about 20 minutes. Patricia opened her purse and pulled out a manila folder. Then I did what I should have done years ago. I asked for specifics. Dates, details, documentation. The kind of information Jake has never been good at keeping straight when he's lying. She opened the folder, revealing printouts of what looked like bank statements and photographs. Emma, did you know that Jake has been depositing regular payments into his savings account for the past 2 years? Payments that he told us were from a part-time consulting job? I leaned forward, studying the bank statements she showed me. There were my Venmo payments, clear as day, $650 on the first of every month for rent, smaller amounts throughout each month for utilities and groceries. All of it going directly into Jake's account, with notations like PT consulting and freelance work. He told you I was paying him for consulting? Computer help for a local business, he said. We were so proud of his entrepreneurial spirit. Patricia's voice carried a bitter edge now. What he was actually doing was taking rent money from his live-in girlfriend and lying to us about the source. Live-in girlfriend. The phrase hung in the air between us. Mrs. Peterson, Jake never told me you lived in Stockton. He always said his family was far away, difficult to coordinate visits with. Stockton is 90 minutes on a good traffic day. We've been inviting him to bring his girlfriend home for Sunday dinner for 3 years. She pulled out more papers, what looked like text message screenshots. These are from Jake, every time we asked about you. Emma's working. Emma's not feeling social. Emma's dealing with family stuff. We thought you didn't want to meet us. The manipulation was breathtaking in its completeness. Jake hadn't just been keeping me away from his family, he'd been making them think I was rejecting them. There's something else, Patricia continued, pulling out a photograph that made my chest tight. It was Jake and Brittany at what looked like a family barbecue, surrounded by people I'd never seen but who had Jake's same features. This was taken at my nephew Derek's birthday party 6 weeks ago. Jake introduced Brittany as his girlfriend of 8 months. Said they were getting serious, talking about moving in together. Moving in together. While he'd been sleeping in my bed and splitting my utilities. Patricia Peterson looked me directly in the eye. Emma, I don't know what my son has become, but the man who could do this to you isn't the boy I raised. And I intend to make sure he understands exactly how disappointed his father and I are. My phone started buzzing incessantly while Patricia Peterson was still sitting on my couch, showing me evidence of Jake's lies to his own family. The caller ID showed Jake's name, but Patricia held up her hand. Let it ring, she said firmly. He's been calling me every 10 minutes since 7 this morning. Apparently someone from his work called him at 6:30 about an urgent HR meeting. Brittany's meeting. I'd almost forgotten in the chaos of learning about Jake's financial deceptions with his parents. Mrs. Peterson, there's something else you should know. Jake's been seeing a coworker named Brittany Lawson for the past 8 months. The same Brittany from that family photo. Patricia's expression didn't change. While living with you? 4 nights a week in my bed, 3 nights at his own apartment that I didn't know he still had. My voice cracked slightly. He told her we'd broken up 6 months ago. He told you I was an unstable ex he was helping. He told me his family lived too far away to visit. And he told us you were just a friend going through a hard time who needed temporary support after your father's death. Patricia folded the bank statements with precise movements. Emma, I've been married for 32 years. I know what financial abuse looks like, even when it's my own son doing it. The phrase financial abuse hit me like a slap. I'd never thought of it that way, Jake asking for money, me giving it willingly, believing we were building a life together. But seeing those bank statements with his lies written in the memo lines made it clear, he'd been systematically extracting money from me while planning his exit strategy. My phone buzzed with a text. Not from Jake this time, from Brittany, HR meeting moved up to 8:30. Jake showed up early trying to clarify the situation. This is happening fast. Another buzz, this time from an unknown number. Emma, this is Derek Peterson, Jake's cousin. Can you call me? Some weird stuff is going down and I think you should know about it. Patricia saw me reading the messages. Derek's a good kid. He's been uncomfortable about the Brittany situation since that birthday party. Said something felt off about Jake bringing a new girlfriend when he'd been talking about you for years. He talked about me to your family? Constantly. How hard you worked, how you'd helped him get his job, how grateful he was for your support during tough times. We assumed you were the love of his life. Patricia's voice grew harder. Now I realize he was using our sympathy for you as cover for taking your money. My phone rang again. This time it was Richard Morrison. Emma, I apologize for calling so early, but we have a situation. Jake Peterson submitted his resignation this morning, effective immediately. He's claiming harassment and a hostile work environment. Richard's voice was tight with controlled anger. He also submitted a formal complaint alleging that you've been stalking him and interfering with his professional relationships. The room started spinning. Richard, that's not. Of course it's not true. But Emma, this changes things. If Jake's willing to file false harassment claims, he's escalated this beyond a personal matter. You need to protect yourself legally. Patricia Peterson was watching me with sharp eyes as I hung up. What happened? Jake quit his job and filed harassment charges against me. My voice sounded hollow in my own ears. The job I got him. He's claiming I've been stalking him. Patricia stood up abruptly, her thermos clattering against my coffee table. That's it. I've heard enough. She pulled out her own phone and dialed with quick, angry movements. Jacob Peterson, you have exactly 1 hour to get to your apartment and wait for your father and me. We're driving up from Stockton right now, and you're going to explain every single lie you've told about Emma Martinez. And then you're going to figure out how to fix this mess before it destroys an innocent woman's reputation. She hung up and turned to me. Emma, my husband Bill is a retired employment lawyer. He's handled harassment cases for 25 years. Would you like him to make some calls? 3 hours later, I sat in my apartment with Patricia and Bill Peterson, Jake's own parents, helping me draft a response to his harassment complaint. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. The beauty of Jake's lies, Bill explained, spreading out documents on my kitchen table, is that he documented everything himself. These Venmo transactions, the timeline Brittany provided, his own social media posts, they create a paper trail that contradicts every claim in his complaint. My phone buzzed with a text from Brittany. Jake just showed up at Morrison Tech Security demanding to speak with me. They escorted him out. Richard Morrison wants to talk to you. Apparently Jake's resignation letter included some interesting admissions about maintaining multiple living situations that contradicted his harassment claims. Patricia looked up from organizing bank statements. Emma, I need you to know something. After we confronted Jake this morning, he admitted everything. The double life, the financial manipulation, telling us you were just a friend while living off your support. Her voice was steady but tired. He said he was going to phase you out gradually once Brittany agreed to move in with him. Phase me out. Like I was a subscription service he was planning to cancel. There's more, Bill added, holding up a document. Jake's landlord confirmed his lease renewal was contingent on finding a cosigner. He was planning to ask Brittany to move in and help with rent, the same arrangement he had with you. Patricia and I would have been on the hook if she'd said no. The systematic nature of it was breathtaking. Jake hadn't just been using me, he'd been preparing to use Brittany the exact same way, with his parents as backup. My phone rang. Richard Morrison again. Emma, I have news. Jake's resignation has been rejected pending investigation into his harassment complaint. Our legal team reviewed the allegations against the evidence you and Miss Lawson provided. Richard's voice carried satisfaction. His complaint states that he ended your relationship 6 months ago and has been receiving unwanted contacts since then. But his own Venmo request history shows him actively soliciting money from you as recently as last week. I felt something light and warm bloom in my chest for the first time in days. What happens now? Jake has 24 hours to withdraw his complaint or face termination for filing false allegations. Either way, he'll be required to pay back any company resources used during his period of deception, including the business trip he took Brittany on that was supposed to be for employee training only. After hanging up, I turned to Bill Peterson. Is it over? The legal part, yes. Jake backed himself into a corner by filing that complaint. No lawyer will touch a harassment case when the alleged victim was actively requesting money from his supposed stalker. Bill gathered the documents into neat piles. But Emma, I need to ask, what do you want from this? What would resolution look like for you? I thought about Jake's panicked texts, his desperate attempts to control a situation that had completely escaped his management. I thought about 5 years of believing I wasn't good enough to meet his family, wasn't substantial enough for his future plans. I want my money back, I said finally. Every penny I gave him under false pretenses. And I want everyone who heard his lies to know the truth. Patricia smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all day. Emma, honey, that's exactly what you're going to get. My phone buzzed with one final text from Jake. Emma, please. We can work this out. I love you. I showed the message to his parents. Patricia Peterson, the woman who'd raised him, who knew him better than anyone, read it and shook her head. No, she said quietly. If Jake loved you, Emma, he never would have made you convenient. I deleted the message without responding. Some conversations don't deserve an answer.